The Rod B. Horn Top 20 Countdown. We're at number 12, and we're getting really close to home now, Rod. Number 12 in the countdown is another team from the Big 12 Conference. Hit it. All right, Rod B. Horns at number 12. We know that they are pretty loaded at every position. Not a lot of question marks on this football team. Heard you say earlier behind the burnt orange curtain that after hearing Jaron Thompson's sound this morning, you're feeling more and more confident that this defense can go from the improvements of last year and make an even further step towards being one of those great defenses that help you win football games.
That's the hope because, you did lose DeMarvio and Overshown, damn good player, lost more Ojimo, Keandre Coburn. So you lost some Deshaun Jameson. You lost some crucial pieces. But from what I've heard, also you're bringing back some crucial pieces. From what I've heard, this team in the offseason, they're saying the right things. Jalen Ford, some of the leaders like Jaron Thompson, Quinn Ewers too, you can tell that they have really invested in trying to improve their football IQ and their football acumen. I think it goes back to something you talked about that Sark is emphasizing, which is being at their best in critical moments.
Yeah.
Critical moments, we need to be playing our best football, situational football. We have to master that. And the key to mastering situational football is to be able to think your way through it. Is your football IQ. That's the key to situational football, is that awareness. And I think all these guys are trying to work on their overall football awareness. And I'm hearing that, and I love it because I remember as a player taking my game to the next level, doing the exact same thing. Staying in the film study, having think take sessions with my teammates about how I can get better. If they beat me on a play, why they beat me, how they beat me, how they're trying to manipulate the defense, exchanging those ideas. I'm hearing a lot of that. It's just hearing right now. I'm just hearing it. But like I said, as a former player myself who was in that locker room at Texas, I took that ascent to the next level because of the football IQ improving drastically for me with having Coach Aquina and then taking it seriously. And I think I hear that happening with these guys too. On both sides of the ball.
And having covered your teams, and I remember when you were recruited to Texas, I mean, this program is in a similar place than it was when you were playing there. It feels like it's going in a good direction. Mac Brown was stacking good recruiting classes. Mm-hmm. He was keeping the coaching continuity. His staff was maintaining, and good players lead to good football. And then when there's coaching continuity and the message stays the same, and the player can just and the player, it becomes more of a player-led thing. I mentioned earlier that yesterday we dropped the new Eyes on Texas multicast that I do that you can find on YouTube at the Horns YouTube channel and at Dave Campbell's Texas Football's YouTube channel and on Spotify and iTunes, called the Eyes on Texas. And that's all things Texas football. Last week, or in our episode this week, we had Diamante Tucker Dorsey in the house. And he came in and played on this team last year, 1 year after 5 years at James Madison, came in through the transfer portal. And I asked him, I said, is it okay? You've been to practice. You've been around these guys. You're still talking to your teammates. Is it okay to say that it's absolutely the goal to win the Big 12 championship? And Tuck stopped me and said, no. It's not a goal. It's the expectation. Mm-hmm. It's the expectation. No goals. It's what they expect to have happen. And again, that's talk. We're in the talking season. But man, these guys, and it seems like position by position, they're challenging one another at every spot. And, look, and to compare it to your teams in the early 2000s, Ron, Quinn Ewers is going to make some bad throws this year. Yeah. Quinn Ewers is going to throw some interceptions. It's
going to happen.
And people are going to throw things because it's still a building program, and they're going to make some mistakes. But I think we're going to see fewer and fewer. I mean, last year the 4 losses were all winnable ball games right there. If you execute to the elite level in the critical moments, they beat Texas Tech. They probably beat Oklahoma State. They didn't. They got out-executed and outperformed in the critical moments of football games. TCU was another one. And so that's what you have to clean up. And if you can, the next step is right there. And now you're looking at a 10-2 kind of team, which is a good step forward, a double-digit win squad. Can we hear from Joel Klatt from Fox TV? He is doing a great job. Of course, he's the lead color analyst on their Big Noon kickoff game every week. Joel Klatt gave his opinion of the Longhorns. We have at number 12.
Is this finally the year that Texas wins the Big 12? Do you know why I'm pausing right now? Because I feel like we're breaking the rules. The rules have been, we're not talking about Texas unless they do something. That's the rules. I don't know what to tell you. And We're breaking the rules because the question is about Texas. Why is the question about Texas? They got the best roster in the Big 12. The question is about Texas because they're the best team in the Big 12. Stop me if you've heard that before in the last decade. I'm starting to get fed up with Texas before the season. And I like Sark. I like Quinn Ewers. I like this team. 10 starters back on offense. Should be dynamic in that respect. They were a pretty good defense last year. They just didn't win tight ball games. If they can fix that, which they should, through experience, making those plays when they need to, they'll land in the Big 12 championship game. Best rosters usually win championship games. They should win the Big 12 championship. They should. Their roster suggests that they're the best team in the conference and that they should compete for a playoff spot. But guess what? They're still Texas. They're still Texas. And by the way, I've been a bit of a cheerleader for Texas. And that's why I'm so upset even before they play a game. Like, perpetually underachieving this team.
There you go. Breaking the rules, talking about them before they do something. But is that a fair? I mean, that's the national sentiment. That's the national narrative. People are going to say, you see the AP poll, the coaches poll. There's Texas again up there, ranked in the top 12. They'll underachieve. Is this the year they break that and break through that and become a team that plays in the double-digit win category and plays for big things like Big 12 championships?
One of the best bets in college football the last 13 years has been the under on Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Over-under win totals. Since 2010, Texas has gone under its preseason win total 12 of the last 13 years. And I talked to Longhorn fans about this. Everybody knows I love Texas. I bleed orange, all right? It's in my blood. I sweat for that brand and bled for that brand. And one of the reasons that Texas is so, hated and there's so much vitriol for Texas nationally is because they are an underachieving program, football-wise, because they do have the resources, they do have all the talent, and yet they very rarely maximize those advantages and translate them into wins. There's always some excuse. There's always some reason why it didn't happen. But the truth is, every other program deals with the same issues, and they have fewer advantages than Texas, but yet Texas cannot translate those advantages into wins, simply wins. And that's why Texas is mocked. It's like, yeah, you do have all the advantages. You do have all the money. You printed over there. What did Red McComb say? Texas has more money than anybody except the Catholic Church. He's not wrong. They got a lot of money over there, all right? A lot of advantages. And a lot of players, they want to play at Texas. Even when Texas is down, they still recruit like gangbusters. Charlie Strong, the program was down, still recruiting like gangbusters. And people love the city of Austin. Out of all the cities in the country, there are probably only 3 or 4 college towns that are on par with Austin, Texas. We got all these advantages, and yet you cannot even meet or exceed the over-under win total prior to that year. That's why Texas is disliked nationally. And also, they hate us because they ain't us. A lot of people just want to be Texas. But that's why that underachieving narrative, they cannot escape it right now. The only way to do it is to win.
Shut them up. And make it the expectation, as Tuck said. And I'll say this, again, having covered your teams and through the highest of highs and now this 12 or 13 years of mediocrity, the one consistent I can tell you, Rod, that Mac Brown at the end of his tenure didn't have, what Charlie Strong never had, what Tom Herman never had, coaching staff continuity. Look it up. Every single Mac Brown at the end, after he had to fire all his coaches after the 5-7 season in 2010, He never had coaching continuity. He ran through offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. Charlie Strong had 3 different OCs in 3 years while he was here. Tom Herman brought his staff from Houston, and that wasn't good enough, and he had to make big changes. He had a different defensive coordinator every year while he was at Texas after Todd Orlando was gone. This staff has stayed together, and I do think when you ask the question, why can this year's team be different, I think that's a huge component for me. The staff has stayed together, so you hear Sark saying, this sounds like my team. This sounds like what we talk about in coaches' meetings is what the players are sounding like, because it's been the same message for 3 years, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and only a couple of minor changes on the offensive side of the ball. The staff has stayed together, and they've recruited to the mindset. Big humans, speed on the outside, quarterback. And much like an NFL program, the other thing that they've done is recruit to an elite level at the most important positions on football. we talk to NFL general managers when you're building a team. What are you're looking at quarterback, left tackle, D tackle, and
pass rusher
and corner. Getting Colin Simmons this year changes that because you could say, well, they haven't recruited an elite pass rusher. But gosh, think about it. I was reading a story yesterday that Hudson Card is having a great camp at Purdue. Hudson Card's a good player.
Yes, he is.
But you're not going to miss him at Texas because they've recruited the quarterback position very, very well. And you have Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning and Malik Murphy. That's the only – because I've been here. I've been, trying to sell the Kool-Aid, or at least, I'd love to drink the Kool-Aid with Texas. But like last year was tough because you knew you had a very young offensive line and a young quarterback. That was going to lead to some mistakes, even though you had Bijan and Roschon. That was going to lead to – some growing pains. But this is a team that for the first time since you were at Texas and for Mac Brown's 10-year run where you really look at it and say, you know what, this team checks all the boxes. And now they just have to go do it. They don't have a glaring hole. To Klatt's points, they do have the best roster in the Big 12. That's the other thing. They're not in a gauntlet of a conference like the Big 10 and the Big 12.
Not
the
yet.
SEC should be.
Not till next year.
And if you can't do it this year, questions will be asked. And that is a very, very fair question. I'd also say this, that people say, like you just said, that Tom Herman and Charlie Strong recruited like gangbusters. Well, I would agree. They recruited really good players, but neither recruited the offensive line like Sark is doing right now. Neither recruited
not just Sark. Let's give props to the BMDs and the big money boosters and donors and the Pancake Factory. Trust me, I'm not saying Kyle Flood and Sark can do a good job recruiting, but they would not be getting these types of offensive linemen without the Pancake Factory.
Sure.
50 G's a year. So shout out to Horns with Heart. Hey. They're doing a good job.
Evolve or get passed up. And if you can take advantage of it, take advantage of it. But either way, when they start playing football games on Saturdays, no one cares about the NIL. But at that point, it's winning games.
Yep.
And whatever got him here, Charlie Strong didn't recruit well on the offensive line. Again, the Longhorns haven't had a first offensive lineman drafted in forever. Sam Cosme, the last one. And he was the first one in a long time that has been into the NFL.
He wasn't a blue chip either.
He wasn't.
They haven't had a blue chip offensive lineman drafted in a really long time.
And we'll see it. This team could fall short, and at that point, but I just don't see a lot of reasons why they should, unless there's just a rash of injuries at a critical position or whatever. But even that it's all gas, no excuses. There is not an excuse this year for the Longhorns not to be in Arlington on December 2nd and playing to win the Big 12 championship.
No,
there isn't one.
There isn't an acceptable one, but I do think that one thing that probably could hold it back, it'll come down to Sark.
Yeah, I agree.
That will be if Texas is not considered the best team in the Big 12, all the criticism will go towards Sark. And I said this weeks ago, and I believe it more now. This year will be kind of the ultimate legacy determining season for Sark. I'm not talking about all the time, but there are a lot of people that are Sark haters and there are Sark enthusiasts. And the Sark haters, they'll get all of the ammunition they need, right, to prove their point this season. But also the Sark enthusiasts, I think will also. They'll get all the material they need to prove their point. This is the year that I think each side will either prove their point, but beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt in the court of public opinion, about Steve Sarkisian, whether he is a championship caliber coach or he's just a slightly above average coach who'll never be a championship level coach.
Well, and next year they're into the SEC, and if you can't win the Big 12 this year as the favorite with all the pieces you have, then fair questions will be asked at that point. Fair questions will be asked of Steve Sarkisian because the level of competition is going to ratchet up even that much greater next year. Mm-hmm. But the other side is true, too, to your point about the enthusiasts of Sark. If they win it, he earns some grace period when he gets to the SEC, that it's not going to be you better win the SEC in year one when you get there, not that you're going to get there and get your head kicked in. At the same time, if you win a championship this year, you go in with some momentum. You built this roster at the key positions, as we've talked about. That offensive line will be a year better next year. Defensive line, they're recruiting really well. That's a line of scrimmage league. So, again, huge year. No question. This is one of those pivotal. And it was go back to Tom Herman when he was going into his pivotal important year when he had major Sam Ehlinger as a senior.
After 2019 year. Yeah. That was supposed to be the year.
That was supposed to be the year. Yeah. And it didn't happen.
Yep.
And it didn't happen. And they underachieved. And that was the beginning of the end of Tom Herman. And, this place will grind you up if you don't achieve when you have a team like this. But it does remind me a lot more of the Mac Brown building years than either Charlie Strong or Tom Herman.
Mac Brown was on a linear path where his teams did get better each year. Like we won, I think 9 games my first 2 years. Then we won 11 games and after that, the other group came in. They won double digits, but then the crescendo with 04 and 05 with Tom Herman, he didn't have that linear progression. Remember, he had the 2018 season, and then 2019, he felt, they regressed. And Longhorn fans do not want to see that. And that's why for Sark this year is big. There cannot be regression, because regression will be seen as basically, I think it'll be perceived as an indictment on Sark that he is not the coach to take Texas to the promised land.
And it'll solidify whichever side of that opinion you're on. And Sark has a chance to change that narrative.
You're right.
All right, we'll come back, because if they were to win the Big 12, he would be seen as
a championship-level coach. And you know what they'll say? Hey, how do you guys not see this? At USC, his teams got better every year until he had to battle some demons, which we all have. At Washington, his teams got better every year until he left to take a better job. And at Texas, team got better every year, and he won a championship. How do you idiots not see that he was a championship-caliber coach that was well on his way to accomplishing those goals before he got derailed and sidetracked? But if he doesn't win a championship this year and isn't the best team in the Big 12, all the Sark haters will go, yeah, it was so obvious that he was never a championship caliber coach. He'd never won double-digit games. He had never competed for a championship. Why the hell did you Longhorn fans believe he was all of a sudden going to come to Texas and grow wings and become a different coach all of a sudden? He is what he is, guys.